because we don't really have, Andrew's been working on some alternatives.
Alternatives are not great. Our only other alternative, I mean, think about it, we do not have businesses in the area that would be able to provide what we need. You're talking 3 meals a day, which most of our restaurants do not provide 3 meals a day. We're talking open every single day, and including holidays. There's just not a facility nearby that is able to provide even just meals, let alone diet order specific meals too. We have patients that need specific diet orders, renal, diabetic, heart healthy. Those are our most common ones, but also like you have a puree patient right now. So there are others that come up occasionally. The next best thing that I have been able to find is Bon Bon's Meals. It's out of Ankeny, Iowa. It is literally frozen meals that we would warm up and plate. That is the next best alternative that we would have, rather than being able to reach some type of agreement to still utilize the nursing home kitchen.
So the hospital nursing home I was affiliated with first in Kingman, we rolled it out to our culinary skills class in the high school, and they ended up creating a program that actually was a win-win for the school district and for our care facilities to become, the dietary type services. I don't know if that's anything you guys want to investigate, but it ended up grooming those high school students to pursue that and to learn nutrition under the guidance of a professional, of course, but it ended up being a wonderful program, and so many of those people went to college, and that's what they ended up majoring in and coming back to our community and,
Did they use
running
the
program.
kitchen facilities in the care center or the hospital?
They had to do it in the school until they had their arms around having an actual kitchen, and then eventually our kitchen became for profit. People off the street came in and ate their meals there, and then we ended up having catering business through it. Like, it just kept growing through the years. But it first started off with a COE situation that actually, like somebody like Jen and Ketchum ended up creating.
Yeah.
Was there already an existing culinary skills at the high school for the vocational?
Their home ec class.
Oh, so it wasn't a separate culinary?
No.
Okay.
And then it ended up just really turning into a great opportunity.
Just the other issue that we've talked about is this is 365 days, 3 meals a day. So it would be Christmas, culinary students coming in and cooking 3 meals and
also
Super Bowl
we still
Sunday.
have the issue of we don't have a facility for them to even cook in. The hospital does not have an industrial kitchen. We do not have a facility to even prepare a meal in, rather than a little oven. We have like a little kitchenette like you would have at home, microwave, regular oven, sink. That's what we have. We don't have any type of industrial anything, which would definitely not meet any type of standards as far as state regulations go. We do not have a facility in-house that would meet any of those guidelines. So that is why I said that microwave meals would really be the only other option that we would be able to quickly accommodate, because we would be able to quickly get a freezer, a deep freezer, and a refrigerator, and 3 microwaves. And that's really not ideal whenever it comes to patient satisfaction. And if it was just the acute patients, if we only had patients that were going to be here for 2 or 3 days, that would be one thing. 2 or 3 days you could live off of a microwave meal. But we have skilled patients. We have skilled patients that come and stay months, up to 3 months at our facility. Can you imagine having to eat a microwave meal 3 meals a day for 3 months? That's definitely not ideal.
The culinary skills idea is great.
I think it's fantastic.
A lot of those programs I think they use something called Fat Start, if I'm not mistaken,
I'm not sure.
which is a restaurant industry standard training program with food safety and everything.
I think Marriott came in and did ours for us,
Yeah.
which would be something similar.
And so it takes a while to get those programs going. It's a great idea, and it would take a lot of engagement with our current teacher. It's not called home ec anymore. What is it?
Family and
Family and
consumer sciences.
Yeah, very politically correct.
And it's not just, culinary based. It's learning how to raise a family.
I like the idea. It's a great idea. It's something that could be massaged, but
I think,
maybe
in long
maybe
run,
that
it would
could-
be a lot of fun.
that could intersect with another idea that has crossed my mind, Tim and I talked about. There are a couple of small hospitals that have had game-changing experience by developing, and of course this is the hospital running it, but could it be translated to the care center? By running what amounts to a really nice community food service that people really attend and become just a gathering place for the community. Because the food is great, everyone knows it's safe and often very healthy because it's, in a healthcare setting. And it'd be a way to utilize some of that space on a short-term basis and maybe, make some revenue.
Yeah, it became profitable. It took about 5 years to get there. I mean, we're not.
Yeah,
Right.
I agree, but I had discussion with the head of the hospital, the Bureau of Hospital Standards, the one that surveys us, Mr. Grindstaff, and talked to them about the possibility of licensing the kitchen as hospital space. That way we could put it on our cost report and at least, partially pay for it. Kitchens are never a winner for institutions, and he said there might be some roadblocks because here we go with the bureaucracy. In order to be licensed as hospital space, it has to be built to hospital specifications, and that means, all the way down to what's in the wall, the plugs and the wall sockets and the things around them, and the width of the halls, and fire doors and such and forth.
Would it be possible for some of those folks who do the survey and certifications for hospitals to come in and look at our kitchen to see how much off it might be, or what?
Try to keep those people as far away from this institution as I can. It's like inviting, the board to come in. No, they're good people. Mr. Grindstaff, he really wants to help, and so it's a great idea. He was wondering if you had any like, from the original drawings, or if there's any kind of documentation on things like that. Jamie Kais told me they're 8-foot halls. Is that right? Do you know?
Nursing home regs are also.
Okay. So, I think that's a possibility. Our first choice, if there was any way to do it, and as long as the district is around, because that's obviously, it's an existential question, would be to have the food service as we've known it to be very reliable, good, always there. And now I think with the collaboration with Andrea, it's really been great. Just as far as providing what our folks need with their special needs. To be a vendor, to be a vendor.
My concern is, and briefly, we've been busy looking at other issues, but briefly, I don't know that I would have the continued staff to run that. And in conversations we've had before, you threw out some possibilities of the hospital employing staff and some type of an arrangement. Would it be possible simply for the nursing home district to lease the space and let you hire your people and run that? I mean, it gets back to your survey people and whether or not our kitchen would be, meet their standards.
The way we do it with the pharmacy is the hospital has the pharmacy, that's in the lobby here of our clinic. We own the assets, and then the pharmacy, the foundation, leases that from us along with the employees. And so the employees are hired by the hospital district, but leased by the operators of the pharmacy, which is the foundation.
So this would be a reverse, kind of a reverse situation, because they would own the assets.
Right, and we would lease the kitchen.
We would lease the kitchen. If they had the employees, we would lease the employees, or.
Unless we purchase the assets. That comes down to that question. If that could happen, that's a whole other matter. The voters need to, I think the best thing to do would be to lease the operation from you. Be a double lease, right? We'd be an agency for your employees, and we'd be leasing the space for you. But even if we leased it, unless it meets the standards, we couldn't pass it through the cost report.
Unless it was set up as a vendor. Because right now our meals are being passed through on the cost report, right? Because they're an expense. We're purchasing an expense from a vendor.
Good foundation. Well, there's a problem with the foundation in that we're running a business that is for the benefit of the entire hospital community and the patients. And that includes the clinic patients. And it's a large enough net on the population that the hospital serves that it passes muster. But otherwise.
You were just saying for 12
Yeah,
inpatients.
right, for a political subdivision, I mean, again, it's a question I'm gonna run by the attorneys, she's been out. But, the attorney who was responsible for that arrangement, because it was a unique arrangement, because it fit our particular situation and met IRS standards, for instance, too, for nonprofit. So, I guess what I'm hearing is that the district doesn't wanna run that as an ongoing business.
As I see it right now, I don't see that, I'm not convinced that we would have the manpower and womanpower to do that.
Even if we supplied the labor, if we hired them and benefits and everything, and then you just lease them back. And we've got a great.
That's a good question, Doctor. Wow.
It doesn't need a quick answer.
No.
And again, there's a lot of legal, I think, a lot of legal purposes, which interested you.
That's probably what the nursing home is allowed, the district is allowed to do.
Yeah, some of that.
Especially if they end up getting, well, if they didn't have the residents there, they wouldn't be worried about cost report issues for reimbursement from Medicaid, because they wouldn't have.
You're no longer licensed to do anything. And so there's not really anything to regulate. And I talked briefly with some of the folks at DHSS about this issue. And we're no longer licensed. We don't fall under their
Yes,
view
they
of
wouldn't.
anything, because we're not providing a licensed service. So it's, the board has, can do with as they wish, because we're no longer licensed and certified at all.
I see. No more inspections of the sprinklers over there. No. Unless you wanted to do it, just safety. The state would tell you had to.
So I guess being hopeful that within the 1 year that we're able to possibly try to reopen again, would anything we do cause a problem with that when it comes to the kitchen or?
You know, the way that I see it is, this is also sort of baby steps at this stage of the game. You can't lock in for a long term, you know, we're trying to find a short-term solution to kind of keep a food service going for you all.
I would think it would almost behoove us that use your facility and keep the kitchen staff there, so that in a year, if we did decide that somehow we were able to open up the nursing home again, at least one hurdle is already taken care of. You know, you already at least have kitchen staff there. That's one less thing that we would have to worry about trying to find employment for, you know, and everything will be kept up. Because if all that stuff just sits there for a year, it's not touched, or 2 years, 3 years, that's not good for it either.
Could it be imagined, and of course, I don't know what's gonna happen to any indebtedness, or, you know, what you're gonna do if that becomes, those decisions are made. If you're not a going concern in any way, shape, or form, it negates that. But could it be as simple as going to the voters of the district, at least temporarily, and saying, look, the mission of this district is now to assist in providing food care to the same many, I mean, from an age perspective, our age demographics is very similar to the nursing home. And could it slip through as a way to allow at least the district's mission would shrink to dietary services in support of the elderly that largely are the inpatients of the hospital. And at least we could, after we took a look at the books, just say, look, we'll at least make you whole there plus some small margin, right, to make it full profitable. You go from an unprofitable district to a profitable district, albeit much smaller.
But it would definitely help build your reserves over
Yeah.
time too, especially if the taxpayers would continue to pay the tax levy. So if you start at this level and in January you get 250,000, you feed the hospital, make a margin. Next year you get another 250,000. Next thing you know, you've got reserves of 500, 800,000 in preparation for potential open, because it sounds like, Tim, you were saying you actually have 2 years. So they dropped the mandate deal only if the mandate went through. So if they bring it back, because right, there's only 10 states right now, it's back on in Illinois, it's back on in other states, that the other federal court overruled, it'll go to the Supreme Court.
That was for.
Oh, that was for
businesses.
the businesses.
That was for OSHA related.
That's right.
Non-healthcare businesses. That
Yeah.
injunction has been stayed by the appellate court.
Yeah.
It's being challenged at the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
But as far as I know, the healthcare worker injunction still stays. No appellate court struck that down, right? So what I'm thinking is, and I've also been told that the heating and cooling to the kitchen area is sort of its own. Okay, so from a utilities standpoint, if you just shut the place down to just keep the pipes from freezing standpoint.
I've got for our board some estimated projections of what.
What would the ongoing cost be?
Cost would be just.
Could the tech.
That includes an estimate on keeping heating and cooling the kitchen
Okay.
area.
And so net, the kitchen services, and I think you ought to give idea to make it a community. Lunch and soup and salad, Andrea had some ideas there. We've got to find a way, whether it's in healthcare or food care or anything we do to get some cash paying patients that don't have Medicare or Medicaid. Love those people, and we can't live without them, but by the same token, it never pays the bills. And so if we could build some retail business, slowly but surely, and find, that could be the hope that people have talked about, and then make a full court press for some of those apartment type units, I don't know, is it doable, is it possible? Who wouldn't want to live next to a hospital and was still relatively independent, but wanted that umbilical cord to a hospital?
Clark has survived over there with they've got their senior haven or whatever that's actually owned, I think, by the district, is right across the parking lot. And basically all of those people are kind of living till the day they can move into the nursing home. So they've got ready-made, admissions there. And they're just set up more like apartments so people don't feel like they're losing their independence, I wouldn't build anything but existing space. You have existing space that could potentially be repurposed or remodeled, or something like that. But I don't know.
This is where potentially, again, it's all, the problem is timeliness, and how in the world are you gonna
Get it done in a year.
get it done in like a month, right?
Yeah.
But do Derek and Chris have any ways that public-private partnerships could be forged to help with some kind of a facelift to make apartments make that space into attractive living spaces that are a little schmoozy?
Wasn't there senior housing here? When I first moved here, I was thinking there was senior housing. Is that Sunrise Terrace now?
There is no just senior housing.
Right, but wasn't Sunrise Terrace senior housing? That's what
That's what
I
you
thought.
want. Yeah,
Just east of the square.
Yeah, that's where we're at.
but it's not just,
Now it's open to anybody.
now it's open to any.
I mean, the rent is income-based, but it's open to
Right.
anybody.
But it's not just for seniors.
And HUD's the same way.
Right.
And may I say something? Because we administer HUD housing at RPC, there is always a lack, there is a waiting list. I mean, there's a lack of housing in
Right.
Scullin County and neighboring communities. That's what I'm saying.
But those are all income based, like the people that get help for their rent are the people that are on Medicaid on our side. So they make those places full, they make our places lose money. And that, I wanna be very clear, that doesn't make them undesirable.
Yeah.
That's just bottom line, it's dollars.
You do have residents who are private pets.
Yes.
Or you do have seniors who can no longer stay in their home, but who could live in an apartment, who could live in a place like that. You know, that would look attractive. To have a
I've
little
said all
apartment.
along we should rent our RCF out to hunters all season long.
Have a lodge.
A lodge.
Yeah.
You know?
Hey, the
But I'm
kitchen
just
could
saying-
provide meals for them.
Yeah.
You could charge
Exactly.
I'm
$5,000.
telling you, everybody laughed at me a few months ago.
No.
Come back to this kitchen deal, is there a way to,
Keep
get
it on
it you
track,
wanted a
I
while?
like it.
Like the nutrition site, is there a way to somehow combine, I mean, I know that's just a lunchtime meal, but like if those people brought some of the personnel or the oversight, or like if you did use our kitchen and that did work, or, you know, but, I mean, they provide a sit-down place, but those meals are what, $4 a day? $4 a meal?
So does our,
That's what the
who
government
owns the
program.
nutrition site? Do they own that building or do they rent that building? I wonder.
don't know.
The
I don't know
nutrition
whether they
center-
own or, I don't know whether they own or rent it either, but the nutrition site is a funded
That's a
program.
funded government
That's why the
program.
meals are that, which kinda makes sense. You could use the
But
dining
don't-
hall
if
as a
they-
sit-down space
Right, but
for
if-
a
if they
meal.
rent
But it's
that
the same thing
building,
as
couldn't
senior
they
haven,
rent
it's
it
subsidized,
to
that's
free?
why
It's a government subsidized program.
Which is very centrally located in the community.
I think it's the Council on
It's very
Aging.
nice.
Mhm.
I'm serious, I mean, I
Yeah.
think.
So Bluefield cafeteria, Bluefield Hospital cafeteria, they do the Meals on Wheels program in Bluefield, not all of Davis County, but in Bluefield. They do not do the sit-down meals, which is the socialization that comes with it, is hugely a part of the nutrition part of it. But you know, we're a small enough community, I don't feel like you could ask to take the Meals on Wheels part away. I mean, the nutrition side is the same situation everybody else is in.
Right.
You know, they're trying to keep their doors open with fundraisers and cookie sales and, you know, soup suppers. So, but yes, I do know Bloomfield Hospital does provide the Meals on Wheels in the Bloomfield community, the hospital cafeteria.
But I think one thing that she was bringing up is it's something that they have to partner, you have to combine all food service for seniors in Scotland County, hospitalized patients, Meals on Wheels, sit down in the socialization, sit down over there. I heard it was raised to $5 recently is what I heard. Went
Well,
from
I mean,
4
I
to
just
5.
remember all the people talking, and it's like, we all gotta come together, it's like, okay, well, if we do want to get people involved, and we do want to get, you know, like, there's no better way to get somebody's attention than say, hey, come eat with me at so-and-so, it's, you know, it's a way that we can support.
Yeah, you guys could have a cafe where people, the community could come, salad bar, you know, whatever, buffet line.
There's no
They
easier
$15
way to
a
lose
pop.
money than to go into a restaurant.
Not just restaurant, the food you were gonna serve every day to the inpatients and the seniors and the Meals on Wheels is the same thing anybody else could eat that day for a flat fee. You're not doing short order
I
cooking.
ate at the hospital every day,
Yeah.
it's $4.
And Davis County Hospital also hosts the Kiwanis every week too.
Ah.
They
Yep.
take, outside people
They
can
do.
come in and eat,
Yeah,
don't they?
they-
Yeah, I remember, my husband used to
But they
eat
do
when he
do
worked
that.
up there at the. when he
So
was
if they
working
took
at
the
hospital.
Rotary on Tuesdays and,
Kiwanis on Fridays.
And Overlay Hospital does that, they have a big salad bar and people.
Which the
eat
Rotary
from it.
used to meet in the nursing home. we had a season in our life that we met, when Daisy was the president for a couple of years. We met in the nursing home and they provided our meal before my time, but Jim had this.
There are some political questions about that, and some, competition in the community questions about providing competition.
Right.
Do you
Well, you heard
know
all
if
these
the
people.
nutrition site?
They were all like, we're all in, the community will rally
Nutrition
around,
site delivers.
even if it's competing with.
Do you know if the nutrition site owns that building, or if it's
I don't know
somebody?
any of those details. They have a board, I mean, we all know.
They do have a board.
Beverly Moore, I believe, is the president. She's president of Authority.
What is your timeline on investigating, assuming that there's not some magic parachute that happens in the next week or two with money that allows you to just attract people at $200 an hour from the hospital? We've seen that. People have
When we
gone
get
out
full,
for-
you want us to give you calls, send them
Yeah,
your way? There
we'll
you
get-
go.
We'll get in a gas price war with you guys.
Or call the National Guard.
But what are the long-term plans for the facility? I mean, when are you gonna have those discussions as far as what you're gonna do?
I think some of the meeting tonight in executive session is to talk about the legal ramifications of what we can and can't do, and whether or not, if the nursing home is closed, can you continue to receive tax-based revenue? And we just have a lot of questions for legal counsel to answer for the board and give some directions, and have eyes and ears wide open to see what options are.
So a lot of what we are able to do, because I think we're willing to do anything within reason, maybe even without reason, to keep the food service alive, right, to support that.
And if there's some regulatory issues, that's a prime spot. Maybe Senator O'Loughlin can't do a lot about the state Medicaid reimbursement system right now, but if there's a regulatory issue, then, when COVID came out, there's all kinds of waivers that have been issued to get around, and that might be a battle that she can address on that side if there's a problem with survey and regulation.
Yeah.
When you have your surveys, do they come in, do they ask you if you have any existing waivers in place? Do you have such a thing as that?
There are waivers we have, but it's largely in performance of what we can do in telehealth and so forth. I mean, it's not really, there's no real substantive waivers like that.
Okay, so
Well, they did let us, and that's going away in December, at the end of December. They let us run our acute care clinic in what used to be the health department space over there as a rural health clinic space. You're not supposed to do those on your, within 25 feet of the hospital or some crazy number. But they waived that just as an alternative site to COVID care.
I tried to go in there and they said I wasn't cute enough.
So like in the nursing home world, we had done some remodeling
That
at the
never
nursing
changes.
home, and it caused a patient room to be 5 or 7 feet further from the nurse's station than it was permitted to be. It's 150 feet. All rooms have to be within 150 feet of the nurse's station. But we were 7 feet further. And so we had to apply and get a waiver, and so when your inspectors come in, they ask, do you have any waivers in place? Well, yes, we have a waiver, this room can be, and so that might be an avenue of waiver to any regulatory hurdles.
Well, that may be the most pregnant thought right now, is just to cement down whether DHSS will let us lease that from you and run it as hospital space, right?
If you could get that, just to keep things going, and the possibility of our meetings continuing on our board, and looking for different avenues that we could take on these things. I mean, Tara suggested the Hunters renting it, making it then into an apartment, getting any kind of a grant that would allow us to, a block grant or something for housing. low income housing in our area. I don't know, I mean, I'm just throwing them out there. I don't think we're just gonna, the nursing home's closed, board doesn't need it anymore. I don't think that's gonna happen. All of us would like it to reopen, and if not, find something useful in our community.
Well, Mr. Summers will answer the question, but my speculation is if the district is chartered under a certain mission and purpose, that you may be hamstrung there unless you go to the voters and ask for a different mission, but I don't know.
Well, I'm not agreeing on that, I'm just saying.
Yeah, right.
If we could come to some type of at least temporary but ongoing agreement, so that you guys could, you don't think that by any chance it would be grandfathered in with the utilities and everything the way they are?
The specifications on what's required
Well,
when you
because of
open
the
up a new
boiler and
kitchen.
so forth? No, no.
It's been good enough to, prepare meals all these other years, but it seems like if it changes hands, then all of a sudden, the regulations come into play again.
I mean, the construction optically appears very similar. They were built within short order.
1 to 2 years.
So maybe it was all the same general architecture and design.
In fact, at one time, there was one board for both facilities, years ago.
Which is why I wonder, right?
There was.
Charter is.
And they had to split it for whatever it's worth. I don't know, 1975, but I worked for a construction company that was building on various places in the hospital. It was hospital, it was nursing home, it was, it was all, it was all one construction.
All uniform.
One builder,
One
With
board.
the same specs essentially, I mean,
I'm
for the
sure it was,
for the same corridor.
for
the same-
whatever I knew at 18, 19 years old about that kind of stuff, yeah. It all seemed the same.
There was just one board, that's got.
I know that I can.
There was
one board until they legally had to separate it into two separate boards. And that was just a short time, but the original founding was one.
What about Representative Greg Charge? I've heard Senator O'Loughlin's name mentioned once.
Greg called me today. I talked for about an hour with him. He was getting interviewed by you. Were you gonna interview Greg?
Was he calling me after you?
He
Or
called
I think
you
he
after-
called,
he called me
he called me
first.
after you.
He called me because
Yeah.
he said he'd been asked for an interview and he wanted to know what was going on. So, Greg Sharp.
Yeah.
That was me, yeah, that
Yeah.
was me.
Yeah.
And he just said he wanted to be able to speak intelligently on the issue, and he knew Cindy had been doing some kind of work about the meeting in November and that kind of stuff, but he just had questions because he hadn't heard from anyone,
Okay.
like, what was happening.
I wondered why we hadn't heard from him.
Yeah.
Okay.
I said, I'll come to you.
Okay.
I'm sure he would come on the 30th if it was, felt like it was needed. I know he was gonna talk to Cindy as well, and he talked about bad timing because the session starts here in January when the legislature could adopt something to take care of it. It wouldn't be probably something that would happen until March or April, and that's kind of too late for the time frame of closure, But not for reopening. They still can do something.
Well,
to help us.
Cindy's all over it, Senator O'Loughlin. And if a waiver is possible, it may be that DHSS is hamstrung because they're held to if they're licensing, because they do the surveys for the hospital in behalf of Medicare for us. So if Medicare defines some kind of a standard that doesn't exist, just physically, then we have to go one step beyond him. The state may not be the authority on this. It may be ultimately Medicare, but the regional offices can't sit it. So I think I'll just start climbing the ladder tomorrow, go back to him and say, hey, it's not their intent to really operate just as a nursing home district to operate a food service, right? And that they don't see that as feasible. We'd like to have you consider figuring out, come on up and tell us if you can let us operate, lease it from you. Is that the basic framework you're looking at?
Is that agreeable in the form of a motion? Dr. Kober investigated this?
Well, I'd say, all I can say is yes or no, I guess, right, doctor?
You know, his initial was maybe, see if they'll bend it to you, and I said, well, I don't understand how that's in their interest, Rich, but, you know, we'll talk. I mean, it's difficult for me to understand if I was in your place. You're all the most benevolent people I know, except for Bill. Just kidding. No, seriously, great people, every one of you, and I know that you'd like to help us with the food service, but I wouldn't expect you to fall on the sword just to give us some food, you know, so we have to figure out a way that, if you're willing, if there's a way that within the construct of an ongoing district setup that has control of the property, that's something to be determined, but let's make that assumption, that you can pay your bills by, you know, limiting your utility expenses, whatever you need to do. And if we can see it through from a financial standpoint, and I can't imagine why we wouldn't, right? Because it's a necessity, gotta be. We're gonna pay 200 whatever for a nurse, we gotta pay whatever it takes to keep the food service working. And then it's just a matter of whether we can get the authority to grant us the ability to do that. If we can't pass it through on our, you know, what would that expense be? I mean, I don't know, you know, when you look at the whole, I don't know what the utility costs there, and, you know, what the staffing costs are and everything, just in terms of fixed costs, whether you're doing one meal or 10 or 1,000, you still have to have, you guys need to be there and figure out your shifts and all that. So we'd have to get some numbers on what that cost is, and, you know, worst case scenario, yeah, I think we could probably lease it, it won't be hospital space, and it's just a non-reimbursed cost. Then we'll be having one of these meetings a lot sooner than we may otherwise. Right? That's okay. We'll go as long as we can.
The one other option, if they told us that it was not cost reportable space, and there's no way that it could be, the one other option would be to have some other outside entity operate it that didn't need to cost report it off and vend it to us.
But they're gonna have to make a profit.
I know. That'd be the question is, with lower food costs than they're having right now, because they have no residents.
Right.
So if somebody comes in and they have lower food costs, they don't need as many staff because they're not serving everybody. They just need cooks
Right.
and preps.
But
and-
3 meals a day.
But 3 meals a day, yeah, 3 meals a day. Is it possible that someone could operate it, sell it to us for $12.25 a tray and make a penny's profit? And pay their staff? I don't know. It'd be something that anybody could look at. Could be a venture for Dr. Jeff Davis.
You know, I have a chef friend.
Volunteer.
And all your spare time.
Eileen taught up at the culinary school in somewhat, Indian Hills for a year or so. We have a good friend up there who's, you know, I don't know what his future is in terms of professionally, but you know, he could at least help us with a pro forma or something like that.
Yeah.
He's been in the institutional food industry. You know, we can approach him for that. but-
I'm thinking we bring down culinary students from Indian Hills, we give them a place to stay for the day. In one
We
the
have plenty of
rooms.
rooms.
Plenty of rooms.
Plenty of rooms. Dorms.
They're
gonna be really cold.
They pay us tuition. They prep our food, we sell it to the hospital.
I wish we could treat this state line the way our present administration is treating our southern border, then we wouldn't have a problem.
That's
Just come on down, border doesn't matter, but it's that Iowa border that kills us with our relationship with Indian Hills, it really torpedoes a lot of our lives.
Because community colleges
Yeah,
are
they can't
state.
take community college Iowa money and subsidize.
I see.
But, and I'm
They're
looking
still
just for his
charging.
professional expertise.
What about the high school?
To make
That's right, high school.
a little assessment, I could probably get him to come down here and take a look at it at some point.
There are.
Culinary arts school in St. Joe.
Well, in Knox County, they take a bus, they have a little cafe bus, and they run that and they pay out of that.
Hospital food truck, I like it.
A roach coach for the hospital.
Barbecue lunch.
So where would you like to frame what a good motion would be from our board board so they can make a motion and we can move on about how you're gonna look at that.
I just think you just need to resolve to, contingent on, regulatory approval, leasing the kitchen operation, the kitchen facility to the hospital, and, based on, again, regulatory approval and financial feasibility of the hospital. Does that sound okay, Lori? I mean, you're the president, you're the teacher, after all. Does that sound right?
Do I have a motion to that effect?
A lot of words right now. My brain hurts. I make a motion that we ask Dr. Shelber to go ahead and inquire to the viability of making that, finding out what to determine, I guess.
To investigate the viability of the lease.
I'll second.
In favor of that?
Aye.
Do we have anything else we need to touch on this
If you
evening?
can find a few more hours in the day, because I'm trying to find a director of nursing, I think we've got an OD supervisor, a daycare thing, what else are we missing at this point? We got 3 or 4, huh?
Pharmacist.
Pharmacists.
Yeah.
And if your travelers need a room, we got rooms.
Well, right, we need
Good
a
Lord.
board.
That's actually not a bad idea, because we do have a lot of travelers that look for space, and I mean, if you're legit about that, I think our
A
travelers.
rental for travelers.
Really do need space,
And meal
places to
service.
sleep, that would be ideal.
Hey,
Thanks for
physical
inviting
therapy
us.
students.
Thanks for
Yeah,
letting
I bet,
Literally,
you.
my prayers and my thoughts have really been with you guys.
Yes,
I mean,
yeah.
I can't imagine being in the shade, but it's sort of like that Christmas Carol movie. We're worried that we're gonna be looking at the same thing you're looking at here. We don't, if there's not some magic
Short staff.
relief. We'll keep praying something works out for you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You all
Thank
had a
you
tough
guys
night
for-
tonight.
Thanks, Lori.
Okay, next on the agenda is the administrator report.
I've talked to you about the progression or progress on placement, thanks to the staff. Also, I have a routine call to BHSS who want to know how are we coming, what are things looking like, so they were very impressed with the fact that we've had nearly all of their residents with an initial first option. And also, the fact that we've been able to, Candy staying on, and finally getting the shifter through agency staff, and being able to hire a couple of part-time people, though on a temporary basis, to shore up the LPN coverage through December and through January. We got pretty good there, so that made them feel better that we have licensed nursing in the building. By one way or another, so.
Right, hook or crook.
Yes, and so they kind of backed off the frequency of touching base with them, because we feel like we're doing well with what we have to do. The other item there, just on the report, is reminding that the board meeting is open, that there are two open spots on the board. Final deadline is December the 28th. At 5 o'clock, so the county clerk, the courthouse, that's where you have to file. If there are less than or more than the number of openings, then there would be need for an election.
Say that again.
Lisa Skinner, I don't know what area she would be in, if that's open. One, she would live on Ridge Road.
Yes.
She's interested in being on the board, even though we'd be close. I mean, she talked to me about it today when we were at the Cindy
Well,
O'Donnell.
now, my opening, is it just in the city limits?
Yes. In the eastern half of the city, it has some zigzags.
But would,
Right.
would Jeannie's and hers be in the same one?
Who?
Because Jeannie,
No.
Jeannie's
No,
on
Jeannie
Shirley.
Jones, yes.
Yes. Jeannie and.
So District 3 is open, which is currently filled by Bill Cadu, and then District 4 is open, which is currently held by Tom Deaver.
Well, I'll go ahead and sign. In fact, what I thought maybe tonight was I might get somebody out of the crowd that
Right.
didn't
Well,
have.
that's in person, but I don't think,
She was in the right side too.
no. But unless Deanna took your spot.
Well, that'd be the only way it could
and-
happen.
Right, and Teresa took Jeannie's spot, but I don't know if Jeannie is.
Because Jeannie was at large.
That's why we can fill it from anywhere. Jeannie's at large, Jeannie's
Yeah.
position was at large, so we can fill it with anyone until
So
her
if
term is
Teresa,
up.
Skinner.
right, Skip, but I'm thinking if she, and
Yeah,
you're
switch.
filing again, right? Yours is up? Well, no, I'm just, if they switched and Deanna took your spot and Teresa was willing to do it, if they both, would they have to file to run or no?
Yeah.
You would file,
Well, my term's up in.
right, if you and
April.
Deanna filed and we gave Teresa the open spot, I mean, is that a doable thing, you understand what I'm saying?
It's the show.
Well, I mean, I'll go ahead and file as far as that goes. But I'm telling you, I don't know how long I'm gonna be able to get to these meetings. It's getting pretty serious. Yeah.
You don't think we could hold that? I don't know, like you said, it's a shell game, I don't know
So
if it's,
Tom would
I don't know if
file
we-
and
we wanna
run.
do it legally.
But then if Tom decides to step down, then he would become at large, and then if you had an interested party like Teresa, then she could step into Tom's spot and finish his term, which would be another 3 years, right? It's a 3-year term. See what I'm saying?
Yeah. So.
It's not every day somebody volunteers to be on the board, regardless of what side of the track they live on. Okay.
No, I would.
Yeah, okay.
So, to make that happen, to move them around, would I need to run in April?
Wow.
The 28th,
Oh.
at 5 p.m.
I'll do it
So
next
it's
couple
gonna
days.
be-
Deanna just said she would be willing to run for your spot,
Oh,
but it would leave the spot open.
But
Yeah.
she
If we
can't
had
run
another
if
person.
she's already filling Jeannie's at large spot.
Okay, that's what I'm asking, I
Yeah.
don't know.
So then we would need
She has
Teresa
to fulfill Jeannie's at large
We
spot.
don't want Teresa,
Oh,
cause she won't fit into his spot.
okay.
But he
So
would
let's
have to
just wait.
redo it and then he would resign and then
Okay.
Teresa would fill his at large position if that's what we wanna do.
And you may have people, that are concerned
Right.
with, what's going
Yeah.
on. You may have somebody else file that you
that's
didn't
right.
expect.
You never
Have
know.
we had anybody file yet?
That's
I
right.
don't know, that's all done at the courthouse.
Why don't they call us? Just get the red.
Could I call it there and ask?
It's public record.
Public record,
Okay,
Yeah.
just curious.
it's 15 minutes.
Yes, you can call up there and ask. I call and ask all the time.
Do you know if anybody's filed?
No, I don't know.
I'm gonna file for my spot, right?
No,
No?
you are.
She
You guys
is filling Jeannie's at large
I know.
spot. You have to file your own spot.
That's what I say, I'll go ahead and file, okay?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll do that.
When you feel like you can't continue and you want to resign,
I'll have to.
you let us
I
know.
won't be here in 3 years.
I don't know, if anybody can dodge a bullet,
Well,
you
I
can
don't
do it.
know. It's getting pretty serious. Still here. Wow.
We're happy for what you've done for our community, Tom, and I'll take whatever you feel like you can do.
I'll go ahead and file. I'll do that.
Thank you. Are we ready for the next item on the agenda?
like to add to?
No, I wouldn't know.
Right. I'd entertain a motion about the executive session.
I make a motion to move into executive session in accordance to Missouri Sunshine Law 610.0211 to discuss our legal options.
Okay, we got a motion and a second to go into executive session by roll call. Deanna?
Aye.
Lana?
Oh, yeah, I've heard all that. I've heard all that.
Thank you.
Thanks, ladies.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you.
And Bill? Yeah.